everyone. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here at the ranch tonight. My name is Lindsay Yeager. I'm the studio coordinator of painting, drawing, and printmaking. You guys are so funny. Before we begin, please take a moment to silence your phones, and I will wait. Anderson Ranch would like to acknowledge that our campus resides on the traditional ancestral territory of the Ute people, who called the Roaring Fork Valley and beyond home for over 800 years. Tonight's program will consist of 2 faculty lectures followed by a Q&A. First, I'd like to introduce Teddy Andriese. Teddy is an artist, designer, and fabricator focusing on functional and sculptural furniture made primarily from wood and metal. He received his BFA with a concentration in Furniture Design and Woodworking from Northern Michigan University in 2020. He completed an internship and studio assistantship from Anderson Ranch in 2022, and he's currently the studio coordinator of sculpture at the ranch. Let's give it up for Teddy.
Hello, everybody. Oh, I forgot my water. Dre and Ben were right. It is a little dry up here. Okay, and I'm going to set my timer too, so I stick to it. Sorry. Okay, so this is my first ever lecture. So we'll see how it goes. But I just want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and thank the ranch for having me speak, and all of the millions out there watching on YouTube tonight. So let's get into it. I just sort of wanted to talk about my process. I feel like that's easiest for me to talk about is like how I make work. And that's, I think, the most interesting part of it for me right now is material and, how things come together, how they join, and then, how I got here. So that's a photo of me being confirmed in a Catholic church. And I might have not known it at the time, but maybe potentially I was realizing I wanted to become an artist. And definitely was realizing I no longer want to be a member of the Catholic Church. And that's my sister next to me, probably having similar thoughts. And then this is me in the studio, so fulfilling my dream years later and making some ramen. And so I'm from Michigan, and this is a classic Michigan scene. This is just at a convenience store, and I'm not a hunter, but a lot of people in Michigan are. And you kind of walk in and you've got all these bucks staring at you, so I thought that was kind of funny. And then this is home for me for sure. I moved around a lot when I was growing up, but all over Michigan, from central, lower peninsula, on up all the way through the UP. So the Great Lakes really shapes my formative years as a youngster, and so this isn't my work, but when I was in college, I went to Northern Michigan University in the Upper Peninsula, Marquette, right on Lake Superior, and I originally went there to study environmental science, and then my buddy showed me the art department, and I was just blown away, and never had touched a saw or a tool in my life, truly, and then I, switched majors and started picking up woodworking. And then this was one of my part-time jobs. I had many jobs in college, but this was my most exciting one, and I got to work with a sculptor named Joey Grassi, and learned a lot from him when I was in school. And we were right on the water, and then I also worked construction, and this is just one of the many views that I had working construction. I felt so lucky every day to be working outside, and again, learning a lot in just a different capacity. So that was really, a formative experience during the part of the process. And then, I started making furniture in school. This was one of my earlier projects, and I'm learning about joinery, learning about wood movement and milling, and really just sketching, learning how to sketch, and taking what I see on the piece of paper to three-dimension. So that was very exciting, again, because I had never touched any tools or saws before. And I remember my teacher asking the whole class, like, showing the bandsaw, and I was like, is anybody afraid of this machine? And nobody raised their hand, but mine shot straight up. I was just terrified, because it is scary, but you learn how to use them and be safe and get confident. And then I put this in here because I thought it was sort of funny. This is the fastest piece of furniture I've ever made. In pure haste, we were having a party in our basement. I'm just like, oh, the ambience is off. So I grabbed a traffic cone and screwed it to the ceiling. Yeah, had a killer night. And so, yeah, so I've learned some skills in school, but during my summers I'd be working and didn't really have access to a shop because I'd live with my dad. And I had an angle grinder and some clamps. And so I started making fins because in Michigan you can lake surf and you break them on rocks all the time. And so I'd have to replace them. So I started making fins. And then my buddies started shaping boards, so they'd ask me to make some plywood fins for their boards to glass on. So these are some plywood fins. And then mahogany, I found this in the scrap bin and thought I'd make a more tasteful fin. And that's a board that my buddy shaped, and then he glassed on the fins. And then I'm sort of thinking about what shaped my childhood was just the lake, and I love waves. I love the power of the lake. For those of you who don't know, the Great Lakes, it gets a lot of swell, but it's not typical ocean swell. It's all wind powered and comes from Canada if you're on Lake Superior, so you're getting a north wind, and it's just super powerful and awesome. And so I was thinking about that, and this is how I kind of sketch. Just really quick sketches, and I remember being in the art building and didn't have a lot of funds for material because you still have to buy your material, like the wood, in the wood shop. And I was asking my professor, I'm like, is there any extra wood you just have laying around? He's like, I've got this old log out back. So I'm like, okay, that sounds awesome. And so yeah, I grabbed the log. It was more than just grabbing it; it was super heavy. And then just start shaping it down. So there's a little sketch, and then chainsaw, angle grinder, and a sander, and it turned out. It was a fun piece, very simple subtractive method, but super excited to try a new process. And then this is just some work from school. Sorry, that was a little fast. This used to be an old luggage rack that I found at a thrift store for like $1, and then just kind of added some joinery. A chair that's not quite comfortable. But there's some joinery shots. So learning about different joinery, this is like a half lap, and then that little detail's got like a bamboo skewer going through. And this was a bit over ambitious, or at least maybe I'm constantly learning through the process. And I had broken my leg when I was making this, skiing. And so I sort of let my pride get the best of me, and during the glue-up process, I didn't ask for any help because I just wanted to get it done. And with the broken leg, it was challenging, but in that moment, I'm learning, and I'm like, okay, next time I ever have a glue-up, regardless of how simple I think it might be, like grab an extra set of hands. So there's a little detail shot. And then gift giving is pretty important for me. I make a lot of gifts for friends, for family, so that's my roommate's hair. And I ended up giving that gift to my sister. This is a jewelry box for my other sister when she got married. And then my cousin was getting married, and I did this bowl in a night, which isn't recommended for greenwood, but this is part of the process. You cut it, start turning it down, and then yeah, I think it was maple. Turned out nice. Pun. This is some flat pack furniture, so this actually disassembles and you could ship it off. This is made during COVID. I actually had COVID when I was making this, and it ended up being okay, but it was super challenging because I was stuck in my apartment in my little room for 2 weeks trying to finish this thing. And so this is my senior project. But essentially, it's kind of ironic because it was made during the pandemic for the pandemic. So basically, the idea was to make a desk that can collapse for people that are having to adapt to like at-home work and want to just, and they're in a studio apartment, so they're able to disassemble this. You can take the legs off, and then the legs sort of scissor closed, and there's sort of an action shot. And then I'm sort of running behind here. I put a lot of slides in here. So this is Anderson Ranch, of course. You guys know that. But I was so fortunate to come out here on scholarship through my school, and it was just a partnership opportunity, and came out here. This is my roommate, Brendan, at the time. We hit it off in 1 week. It was the best week of my life. And we all made furniture, and I got along real well with the interns. And so the class, the concept was Bauhaus Your House, so it's a pretty great title. Focusing on a piece that's related to the Bauhaus or a member of the Bauhaus. So I really enjoy Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. He's a fantastic photographer and painter. And then my piece, always start with a model and sketch, and then made it in really 4 days. So it's so awesome, the energy that the ranch outputs into the students, and you're just like, I'm going to do this, and I have 4 days to come up with it. And yeah, it's just, we got it done, super fun project. And then, I got along with the intern so well, I was like, what, I might as well apply. So I applied for the internship. And this is the team, and couldn't be more proud of the team. We got along so well. It was a smaller crew because it was sort of mid-pandemic a little bit, coming back. And so there was 9 of us. I think a few were missing. And that was the first week. Zakria Rabbani, just big shout out to him. He sort of mentored me into this sculpture position, and I couldn't be more grateful of having such a fantastic mentor, amongst many others too. So that was his piece back there, and I just was helping install. And then he taught me some metal work. So we had an intern show, and I was sort of scrambling, and so I kind of did this in an evening, but was really excited about it and sort of think about it as a sketch, and I would like to return to this eventually. And this internship was unpaid at the time, and so this was kind of my source of revenue for the summer. I would make these clay tools for the clay students, and they loved it, and it worked out, and I've enjoyed making them. So these are slab cutters for different heights, and I call them TED tools. And then this is me just having fun, because they were painted, and I just liked the different sort of designs that they would make. And then these are some of the other tools, so for spindles and spouts, and then I think they spank the clay with those or something. Some more spindles. And then, so my internship led into a studio assistantship. So again, part of the process, just taking every opportunity I can get, and I'm so grateful. Learning every day, every minute. So never had worked with bronze or aluminum or any type of casting. I was mostly in the wood shop for the summer, and so Zakria and I kind of led the charge on these casting projects with residents. And then there was outreach programs. So this was sled derby, which it was a lot of work, but the reward was so awesome. So we did some steam bending on this mold, and then I would leave it like that so that it would retain its shape. And then and this is just figuring it out on the fly, just sort of learning as we go, because we've got this deadline in a couple weeks, and just got to figure it out. So we made these kits, and obviously had to test them. So we hit the slopes. And then this is the sort of the workshop we ran with the kids, putting together the sleds. And then there's the happy campers. And big shout out to Kenny and Saul. They built this luge in the middle of Anderson Ranch, and it was just insane. So it was a lot of work, but the reward was, it was plenty worth it. So super cool. And then this is sort of when I was transitioning into the role of the coordinator, but We do career day, so this is some of the high schoolers doing alginate molds. Finn, I think, was his name, and he's doing his foot, which was unique. And they made like a heart, which was really cute. And then we also do field trips, so just definitely learning, again, like how do we make projects that we can do in 45 minutes. And yeah, it's just really incredible seeing the kids come in and the energy. And it's not easy work working with kids, but it is rewarding. So hats off to the children's program. My roommate is out here tonight, Olivia Martinez. And then working with, I'm going to start speeding things up, working with visiting artists. So Radcliffe Bailey, one of many. And we poured bronze with Radcliffe, made these molds. There's Radcliffe installing these bronze snakes, which are really, really beautiful. Exciting to work with him. And then, when I was in the studio assistantship role, I would make some work in my free time. So I made this bench, which I actually ran into the student last week who has it. And yeah, it was cool to see that full circle. And she's got it next to an Eames chair, and I was like, oh my God, so honored. This is a process of bent lamination, so layering, if you don't know, thin pieces of wood, thin strips, a plywood of ash. Ash is really forgiving. And when it's that thin, it's super pliable and malleable, and then you layer it with glue, stick it to a form. Here's another example, vacuum form. And then it retains its rigidity because that glue dries, and you can pull it off, and there's the finished product. And so I was making a chair. This is just sort of a jig for the chair. And I call it tea time. It's kind of like a golf chair. And this is sort of getting a bit more sculptural. It's not that comfortable, but the question is, does it seat? And yes, it does. So definitely always have to test your products. And it holds up to this day. If anybody wants to sit in this chair, please come by Sculpture. I've got it ready for you. And then we actually did this kind of funny show. So when I was a studio assistant, we lived in this amazing apartment just up the road. And it's kind of a really insane space. And we're like, we should have a show here. And so we did, and we called it No Funny Business. And of course, we want folks to submit like the most ridiculous, like hilarious work. And so there was like tumbleweeds with spray foam on it. There's just Trey did that like sort of blurred image, and then it's very playful work, and it was fun to have that, because I think sometimes it's easy to get focused on like very finished work. So we had a lot of fun doing that. These are Pop-Tarts, UV printed Pop-Tarts, and these are all my roommates. So this was sort of a collaborative thing, but just really really fun. And there's the partay, of course, so a good turnout. And then fabrication, this is sort of the last thing I guess two more things, but this is something that I've been getting into more. I haven't really been making my own work, but it's been a great learning process for me, because you sort of accept these jobs, and then you're in the middle of it, and you're like, okay, how do I do this? I have to figure this out. Anyway, this is my studio. It's a little bit sloppy here. But so some of the fabrication projects that I found myself in, I got to work with Esther Nooner. She commissioned me to make all these frames. I made like, I think 17 or 18 frames for her, and her work is just so beautiful. So it was just super exciting to contribute to her show. This was a solo show in Carbondale, I think. And then Virgil Ortiz, an artist that came here last summer, reached out to me about collaborating with him on a project, and I hadn't done anything in this depth with the CNC. This is all CNC routed, but it was an opportunity for me to learn as I go, and you've got the sort of a pressure of wanting to please the person that you're working with. So that helps put the pressure on and to execute, and this is just sort of it coming together. So it was poplar panels, and then I CNC'd. You put it together. He calls it an obelisk. That part was CNC'd, and then I fabricated that little steel tip. This is getting painted, and then that's at the show. So pretty exciting to see that to fruition. And then super stoked, so I had to take a selfie. And then this was another project that I just finished like last week, and it was a massive steel frame. I've never welded a big steel frame together before, but I went for it. Learned about patina in the process, which was really interesting because I definitely made mistakes. You know, it was like 3 nights of me messing up the patina and then really dialing it in. So to the left is it without like a clear guard, and then I figured out as soon as you apply the patina, like set that patina with the clear guard. And then actually so that was another cool part about sort of dialing this in. I made these joints for the frame, and so it disassembles, so sort of like a flat pack piece. And then last minute, I realized that I had to drill these rocks, which I had never done before. And so this ended up coming together, and was just really, really grateful that it all worked out. But I didn't design this, so this was an artist that I worked with and just sort of fabricated for her. And then last thing I just want to touch on is, you know, why I'm here. It's a great plus to be able to make work and to be here in beautiful Colorado. But I think it's really the people that keeps me here, and the friendships with faculty, with students, with our amazing staff team. It's pretty special. And Emil's my roommate. I've known him since college, but I just wanted to highlight some of my great friends here. Yeah. So some familiar faces. I love that one. That might be my favorite. And that is the first workshop I taught solo. So yeah. But anyway, thank you guys so much, and yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Teddy. Our next speaker is Reggie O'Neal. Reggie O'Neal began painting in 2012, soon meeting his friend and mentor Alejandro Dorda, who would teach him classically. In 2014, Reggie took his first trip to Europe to complete murals in Austria, Norway, and Spain, as well as to exhibit in a collective show alongside his teacher in Berlin, Germany. In the years since, Reggie is focused on canvas work, residencies, and murals that embody his community surroundings, experiences, and beliefs. Please help me welcome Reggie to the stage.
Hi. To give a brief introduction, also, I know the bio was enough, but I'm going to add a little bit more to it. So this first slide is I'm going to go into 2 photos of my mentor, and I'm going to talk a little bit about him and our relationship. So this is Alejandro Dorda, right? This is us on a forklift. This is like the basis of our relationship for a long time. So from 2013 up until 2019. And the fact that I'm on the lift with him, which means I gained the privilege to be there because of my skill has improved since we met. And this is just like a real brotherhood moment. We were painting a wall together in New Orleans. And a little bit about our relationship, it started in 2013. And I briefly met him through some friends of mine in Wynwood, which is a community that's right next to the community that I grew up in. And you know, a lot of people would come down to Miami for Art Basel to do these murals and stuff like that. And so he had just moved to Miami from Berlin. He was staying in Berlin for 3 years, and he moved, and I met him through other friends who were artists in Wynwood that were working. And I had briefly stated I would like to learn how to paint. And he was like, yeah, I'll teach you. And I was like, whatever. It was like something really, really small. And then he hit me up on Facebook and was like, wanted me to play in this film that he was making. And then after that, after we made the film, he started teaching me. And so, yeah, like the bio said, I traveled with him to Europe. I went to Asia a bit, went to the Caribbean and things of that nature to paint walls. But when we would come back to Miami, we would like have a hard like mentorship. I would go to his house almost every day of the week and just practice and paint, and not working towards solo shows or anything. It would just be towards just probably like group shows, but just practice. And so I collected a great body of work for myself to present, like all the way to have my first solo show in 2019. So this is us on a really massive wall. I wish I had put the image of the wall in there, but I didn't. And a little bit about my work. And this is a self-portrait that I did last year, right before I came to the ranch. I actually showed this in my group show during the ranch. And yeah, it was just like something really, really quick that I did in almost like 3 sittings in 3 days. Just like this, something really, really classical that all the masters would do. They would paint themselves and like use themselves as like a crutch or something to just practice on. And so this was just like something quick to like get my gears going for the year, right? And there's nothing special about it. And then I'm gonna go into my mural work. So this is a painting that I did on an 8-story or a 10-story building. This was in Besançon, France in 2001. And the painting that's on the left is mine, and the painting on the right is of this artist, this French artist, Rouge. So during right after the pandemic, a lot of people started to do like these collaborative things and starting to include like more African American artists or Black artists. And so this was a conversation that me and a French artist was creating both together, right? And so they invited, this organization invited an American artist and then had them work with a French artist to work on a collaborative piece. And so my piece on the left is talking about, it's a painting of Eugene Bullard, and at the bottom is the common dandelions. I know you see them everywhere now, but it was the first time I kind of seen them blossom like in a particular setting. And so this image of Eugene Bullard is one of very, very few paintings, pictures that was taken of him, but he was an American, an African American, and he, I think in the early 1930s, he was dealing with a lot of like racism and stuff like that, and so he left the country. And when he left, he ended up in Scotland, and he became a boxer, and then ended up in France, and then became a soldier. He was in the army, and then he got injured on a field, and then I think that was during the First World War, and then during the Second World War, he reapplied and he became a pilot inside of the Air Force for France. And so he fought for France in the Second World War. And he was actually the first African-American person to fly a plane, but he flew for France. And the reason why I painted this is like when he came back to America, he was treated like he was nothing, right? And so he had all of these medals of honor in France, and nobody knew him when he came back to the States. And so I wanted to create that conversation between the two countries. This is a painting that I also did in France. I did it in Nantes, and my mentor did the other side. But this particular image is talking about the drug epidemic, especially in our communities, in the Black communities. And on the side is a picture of like crack cocaine wrapped in a bag. This painting is called In Arm's Reach, and it's really talking about the close proximity to drugs that we had in our neighborhoods, and talking about how these particular drugs at a particular time was used against these communities. Rather, they were people were addicted to them, and right in the middle of the crack epidemic, they changed the laws to give people a larger amount of like prison time to if depending on how much crack cocaine it was caught with. And so it's just talking about something that kind of destroyed my community in a sense, and something that was so close to me, right? And so I just wanted to create that proximity between the two images and me digging in the bag. This is an image that I painted last year in October in St. Petersburg, Florida. This is of John Henry Clark, and then in the back is this tribe in the south of Sudan called the Mundari tribe. And John Henry Clark is responsible. He was a professor at Hunter College, and he was responsible for Pan-African studies in a lot of the schools. And so, like, I used to listen to him a lot last year, and I just learned a lot about, like, African history through his lectures and stuff. And so it kind of made me create this duality between him always talking about Africa and talking about his roots and our roots as a people, and just like thinking about who they were, who they are, and who they were, and who we were before colonization was a thing, right? And how we operated. It wasn't about capitalism or none of these things. And so it's really trying to ask the question of like how these people will operate normally outside of a system that is making them do such things that is foreign to their everyday lives, right? And the fact that, you know, this is talking about African studies at what is happening in Florida right now with DeSantis is taking out African studies out of colleges, out of schools in general. And for me to paint this on, I painted this on a UCF college in St. Petersburg. Sorry if this is like really mundane and heavy, but yeah. This is a painting I did in Areola, Italy. It's of my father, who just got out this year for serving a 21-year sentence in prison. He was arrested when I was 9, and in the back is African people in cotton fields. And so it's really talking about, the painting is called My Father, Little Patrick, which is my cousin that he's holding in our ancestors. So it's talking about the duality, the parallel between slavery and the mass incarceration system. And so, you know, the fact that, like I was talking about before about the crack epidemic and how they changed laws and made people get more prison time for being caught with a specific drug, which would be a poor man's drug. If you were caught with cocaine with the same amount, you'll get lesser time. But if you were caught with crack, you would get a larger amount of time. And so it's talking about how these things was targeting particular neighborhoods and communities. And so it's like, all right, if so much has changed in this country, why are certain people being targeted and certain people going to prison and certain people being caught up in this system that costs a shit ton of money to keep, to hold up? So it's just asking really the country the question. The fact that I painted it in Areola, Italy, it was just the opportunity that I got, and then I eventually painted it in the States. This painting is called Overtown Goodbyes. It's my neighborhood. It's a photo that I painted of my neighborhood that took place in the 1960s. So it's something that happened in my neighborhood before. My neighborhood was considered to be the Harlem of the South. It was a very thriving community, and what they did was they built a very popular intersection through it, like I-95. And so they picked my community to build this intersection through, and that kind of like deteriorated the community after the 60s. And so it became this drug-infested place, this crime-infested place after, but they owned businesses, and a lot of people owned their homes, and they sold their homes to the city in order for them to like gain money and like leave. And so that kind of started the deterioration. And the reason why I painted it now is because it is happening now. And right now it's kind of like the final goodbye, because there's a lot of money being poured into Miami, and there's a lot of things that's changing. And it seemed like none of my people are going to be there after this, because it's not going to be affordable at all. This is my, damn, this is so heavy, man. This is my sister's children's father. So they have 5 kids together, and this is them holding their 4th child, Jaden. I'm not going to get into details, but yeah, he had passed away 2018. And this is my dad holding her when she was a baby. This is my dad also when he was, I think he was like 5 years old. It's a painting that I did of him. And this was taking place in Miami. My dad grew up out of 9 siblings. He was the youngest. And this is him outside of his school being rode by a pony. I meant him riding the pony. And this was a part of an installation that I did that I'm gonna unravel right now. So at the bottom, there's these marigold flowers that y'all have, I think, out here. And I set this right underneath the painting because it's a room. It's I'm gonna explain it better when you see the rest of the images. But as the show, this was a part of a Ulite show, and as the show was going along, like the flowers wasn't being watered because you couldn't get to them, right? And so like during the duration of the show, the flowers was like kind of they were dying. You couldn't flower them. It was a close up, and that's how it looks. So I built a room that's the size of a prison cell, right? And you know, my dad doing 21 years in prison, it's just really creating this conversation of like this person being a child and being somebody's family member that we can't really get to only over the phone and when you have visitation, and talking about how like time passes on and like, you know, a bit of your innocence is constantly like being drained away from you when you in such a hostile environment. And so the fact that you can only see this painting through this little window is what they have inside of their prison rooms when they're you know, incarcerated. Sure enough, it's not the only way they could see the rest of the world. They could like go outside in the yard, but from their room, this is the only view they have outside. And so you can't really see like that much of whatever you're surrounded by. And inside of this room, I had an audio playing of like a soundscape and a conversation that he was having with me and my family members over the phone. And just like laughing and talking about serious stuff. But as the show was going on, it was like playing, and it was like a 40-minute audio that was on a loop. Yeah. So this is a painting that I did here that I finished here last year. It's of a friend of mine that I watched grow up, and I knew her whole family before she was even born. It's just like a regular like photo that I took of her, but I actually like experienced this moment when I was just in their house, like having a conversation. Like I was telling my class this morning, this is like just a real moment that I've experienced with my own two eyes, and there's nothing more to it. I just thought it was something that was very, very subtle and like beautiful. And I felt like really, really at peace when I was seeing it. And so I just wanted to capture it and put it in the painting, right? And so like some of my work, as like when I step away from just like these really, really heavy topics, I try to get more into like my own perspective and how I view the world and how I view people on a day-to-day basis from my own eyes, rather if it has like this heavy content or this conceptual like approach to it. Really, like sometimes I just try to break all of that stuff and try to allow people to see the world through my own eyes, and also people that I appreciate too. This is my my mother. It's a painting that I made in 2020 during the pandemic. Yeah, like I did a lot of paintings of my father because he wasn't like physically there, and so this time I was just trying to like, you know, really paint my mom, and just through like I try to pick the right image and the right way to like convey this feeling that I have for her. And so I think I just like hesitated a lot on when and how I was going to paint her, and this is the first time I painted her. And it was collected, and then after I did the same painting for her, but I did it bigger. This is also a painting I did in the same year that was collected by the same collectors, and they actually did a museum show for me. And this is of my grandmother's glasses, and so my grandmother had passed away in 2020, and so this is like a painting that I did right after she passed. And it's just like this, for me, it's like this way of remembering her. And like when she was alive, I used to always like take her glasses off of her and like put them on myself. And so like this is just a way of just showing like her presence through something that is an ornament that she used to wear all of the time. And so it's a really subtle thing. It wasn't like really that complex to think about, but my mom had all of her belongings, and so I just set aside her glasses and I painted them. And this is the show that I was talking about that collected my work. The solo show is called As I Am, and it was shown at the Rubel Museum. So I had a show at the Rubel Museum, and it had like 7 pieces in it. And so this is the image. I got to use this bean. This is the image of my father that I recreated for them. So they collected like, in 2020, I had my first solo show in Miami, and so they collected almost half of my work. And then, like they always do, if anybody know about the Rubels, they commissioned these 2 pieces. And so this is a painting that I did, also a mural of, and I just like redid it and did it bigger. So this painting is 11 by 15 feet, and this one is 11 by 15. This is 11 by 12 or 13. 11 by 15, I believe. I don't know. Anyway. But this is the title piece. And this is the other side of the room. This is a portrait of myself. This is my mother, my grandmother's glasses. I wish I put this in a slide. I don't know why I didn't. And this is my sister in the hospital. She, this is like a photo that I took of her FaceTime when she was in the hospital. But, yeah. And this is a painting called Rose of my friend when she was a baby. This was also collected by the Rubels the year after my second solo show in Miami. And I just thought this was a really peaceful like moment, just like her being in motion and being like really innocent at a time. She's Haitian, and I think this picture was taken in Haiti when she was just like getting dressed for her family and stuff like that, to take family photos. And this painting is called Zipper. It was collected by the ICA Miami, and it's 80 by 80 inches. So it's like fairly big, but it's really a portrait of this scar that is very familiar in my community. This guy named is Shud, and a friend of mine took this photo and he uploaded it, and I just like cropped his face because I wanted to do just a portrait of something that's very, very familiar. And the fact that a lot of people in my neighborhood has these scars, and it's usually based off of like gun violence. It stems from gun violence, and when people get shot and they survive and stuff like that, they usually have these scars that's left over to try to like, when the doctors try to save them. I think it's called abdominal traumatic surgery or something like that. And this particular person he was shot, I think, 13 times, and he survived. And in this image, he was like kind of covering his face and like kind of honoring this scar and honoring himself as a survivor in this community. And so, and in these communities, and a lot of people just have these like, physical scars, but it makes me think about, these mental scars that people have also that they can't really get rid of, right? And I wrote a poem about it, and it was really talking about, just diving into something that he kind of probably can't forget, that he probably wake up in the middle of the night and think about, just experiencing these things over and over. But it talks about that, the traumatic experience, but it also talks about the resilience of these people in these communities and how they go through such traumatic things and still, have the courage to carry on, And I think that's something that's very, very honorable. And so I wanted to portray that. And this is like some work that I'm diving into. This is like I was taking a walk in France when I went in 2021. And then I just taking pictures with my film camera. And this is just like a moment that I had while I was there. And it's really just like something that's outside of just like figurative work and talking about heavy things and using human bodies to portray a certain feeling and just like dive into my own perspective. Like before this talk or before we had lunch, I was just in the back sitting on a golf course because we don't have hills like that in Miami. And I just was like, man, it's just crazy beautiful. Y'all are extremely lucky to be experiencing things like that. And we have the beach too, so I get to see the sunrise. But, you know, but just like stuff that we don't see like this and people don't see like this in my communities, I just want to kind of return that perspective of just like beauty in everyday life and things that we see on a day-to-day basis to the audience and also to myself. I didn't set a timer, so y'all got to time me. I might go under 15 minutes, which might be good for me. I might go past. This is just a still life of cotton plant, man. 2 years ago, my mom moved to Alabama. And when I was helping her move, I seen like these cotton fields that I'd never seen before. And sure enough, we think of like this whole heavy loaded history of cotton and all of these other things. But like while I was there, I was like thinking about that, but also thinking about it just being a material, right? It's like something that all of us have on. And you think about like how people freedom and leisure was taken away just for this particular material. And the fact that it was like laying around and like, you know, people weren't in the cotton fields and you could just go and take some and put it in your house or whatever, it just like creates this like weird acceptance of what it is now. And also just like I set this like still life in my mom's window and it was just like, damn, the way the light is hitting it is like mad beautiful. So I just decided to paint it. So I don't know. This is also me stepping into like landscape. This is a tree that grows in Miami. It blooms, it blossoms like late February, March, and April. It's called a golden trumpet tree. Like the whole tree would like get yellow. And this is something that has been around my entire life. And I think that I try to just show appreciation for what it would feel like to be in Miami during this time and also just stumble across this tree and see it. And I remember like a friend of mine saying like, I never paid attention to this tree until you painted it. And it's like, these are things, again, like we walk past every day and we don't really sit and contemplate and appreciate on a day-to-day basis. And so I tried with my own self and I feel like I was inspired by Van Gogh, like before painting this. It's just like, it's not really that heavy. It has nothing loaded to it. It's just life that we see on a day-to-day basis. And I think that to contemplate these things might bring us, you know, a little bit of peace or whatever. But I just thought this tree was really beautiful. And I'm doing it again in my studio, so I have to go back and do it again in my studio now. This is a rose bush that I took in France also when I was just taking a walk. And it's just like another one of those moments of like appreciating flowers and stuff and plants. So I'm taking all y'all ideas. It's like, there's so many plants that's like blossoming right now. I'm just like constantly taking photos. So when y'all see me with a whole solo show of flowers and see stuff that y'all recognize, don't quote me. And this is almost similar to the body of work that I was it has a conversation, shall I say, with the body of work that I'm creating with the flowers and these like present moments, right? And these are jazz figurines that I found in New Orleans last year after leaving the ranch. And it's really diving into this perspective or this questioning about the art world at the moment in the art market. And also just like comparing it to the entertainment business, and also sports business, and also using Black bodies for labor And then you talk about like cotton, indigo, and the reason why certain people were bought here, right? It's creating a conversation between all of those. And this particular thing, and the next four, and the next three pieces I'm gonna show you is of these figurines that I found that I've rendered and painted, and to dive into these questions about like the art market, like I was saying, and thinking about being an African-American artist inside of the art market and like kind of getting a name for myself, I started to ask this question of why is people so fond of us now, right? Why are we such a big commodity now? And why are they giving us our chance now inside of the art world? And to me, it's kind of skeptical to think about, because it has like African Americans have been creating art for a very long time, but it's just like this wave that is coming, and it's almost like not trusting in the system in itself, right? And so with these paintings, I'm thinking about like creating, and also something I want to add too is like Black art could be vast. It could be landscapes, it could be sculptures, it could be woodwork, it could be all of these things. But it seems as though, for me, for myself, and my own observation, that to other people, Black art is not really something that people enjoy unless the Black body is present, right? Unless somebody is in it doing some Black shit, like we always do. We always like want to portray our culture and portray who we are, but it seems like we have to do that and have to be this entertaining product for people to collect our work. And so by me putting this figurine, it's not actually a Black body, and it makes people question like, okay, if it's not a Black body, is it still collectible, right? Because there's a Black figure that's in it, right? And if you collect it, people usually collect work of actual people and actual stories, and this doesn't have a story, nor do it have a soul, but it's a Black body, right? And so it's creating this duality between collectors and also the art market, and really asking the question, do y'all appreciate us for who we are, or are we just another commodity at the moment? And so I'm gonna go back to that last one. This is a reference of Miles Davis. Like when he would be on the stage, he would like turn his back towards the audience and play his like his trumpet. But there was a recent interview, and it really posed the question of like who he's performing for. Is he performing for himself, or is he performing for the audience, right? And so there was this recent interview that like surfaced of like somebody asked him this question. And he was like, I was really performing for myself so I could just hear myself. And he's like, I'm not really turning my back on the audience like to show any type of disrespect, but it's just like so he could hear himself, right? And so that also plays into the question of who he's performing for. Even in particular times when he was growing famous, like he would be somebody that would not even be able to, sit in that crowd if he wasn't Miles Davis, right? And so this is just posing all of those questions. It's a pianist. This is also the singer from the front, but I'd like dimmed the lights really, really low. To like think about like if they would cut the lights off of these performers when their time was up, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. There's just a way to play with like lighting and figurine and different readings. And this is the last slide, but also the first figurine that I painted. Those other ones are 64 by 4 feet, 64 inches by 4 feet. And this one is 7 by 11 feet. So it's like very, very, it's kind of big. And I laid it on his back because of the way my studio was set up, because it's really, really wide, but not that tall. And so this figurine is like always vertical, but for some reason I laid it down to create this, just because of how my studio was set up, but it also set up all of these different readings of like who he's performing for and why would he be laying down and things of that nature. And so luckily enough, last year I was able to show this on Miami Beach during the Art Basel in the Art Basel convention. And when that was shown too, it created this different reading also, because when jazz musicians used to come down to Miami, like Miami in my neighborhood was considered the Harlem of the South, but Miami was like a kind of epicenter for people to come down and like, do their thing. But when African Americans and black people used to come down there and they would perform for people on the beach, but they couldn't stay. So they would have to go back to their communities. And so the fact that all of these years later, this performing figurine is like, sleeping on the beach or like staying on the beach, it kind of create this like weird conversation of like what changed, and also paralleling it with the art market and the art world at the time. And that's it, I believe.
All right, thank you, Reggie. We're gonna open it up to a few questions. I'll be running a mic, Kevin's gonna be running a mic, but Teddy and Reggie are gonna be sitting ready to answer questions for you. So.
Hi, thank you both for your amazing talks. I have a question for Reggie. In the beginning of your talk, you sort of apologized a bit about the mundane in your work, but as you were really describing the events and looking at the imagery, I saw how beautiful and quiet, but also monumental these images are. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your palette, your limited palette, connects maybe with some of these ideas. And one of the reasons I ask is I know you're also asking your students to use a limited palette. I know part of that, as you described to me earlier, is formal, but I also wonder how it maybe connects to some of the content in your work.
Thank you, Liz, for that question. I would say, as far as from a technical standpoint, like my mentor had a big influence in how I think about my approach, and like just like taking me through hell with like studying color and like what I'm taking my class through now, which is like really hard. And a lot of brain work is like studying proportions and compositions and things of that nature. And I'm actually taking away the colors and making them focus on light, right? So the value scale, which is in black and white. And so it really helps people pay really, really close attention to the way that light shows up in work, and especially in paintings, and also all image making too, I think, with photography and also videography too. So with me, like I went through an intense year of just working on black and white, and then after that year, I started to incorporate color inside of my work. But my black and white images used to be really, really high in contrast, like the difference, like the range from, like I'm constantly telling my students this right now, but the range from like the lightest of lights to the darkest of darks, it was always like prevalent in my, it was always present inside of my black and white paintings. And so when I started to do color, I kind of used that same like approach to make most of my images like really, really high in contrast. And so I would be really, really careful on the way I choose my light and how I apply my light. So if you see on those figurines, I would like build up the whole image in order to just add those whites, right? To create that contrast, but also create the sheen inside of my work. And so, yeah, it's just like that. But like I have a limited palette, but I will also lay out a lot of paint to just pick and choose from, because all colors are in all colors. And so I would try to work in those, but try to make really, really subtle changes inside of my colors and not make them so grandiose. I hope that answered the question.
Hi, this is for Reggie. I find it really interesting that you're kind of creating a difference between portraiture and using the body as a way to express your experiences and your identity and your family and the people you know. But I also find it interesting that you explain painting landscape and still life as kind of catharsis. And I find that really interesting. My mom is Colombian, and I find that too with like South American artists. It's the same thing, that portraiture is a way to like express war and difficulty. But I'm wondering if you feel as a painter that the landscape and still life still has as much meaning and value and like potency as your portraiture does, like for you individually as an artist.
I think I think for me as a person, they go two and two together. Like I feel like the way in which I approach people and how I like appreciate certain people in my life, I feel like I have the same, like, this is gonna sound extremely weird, I have the same appreciation for nature and things that I'm surrounded by. And so like when I'm creating like landscapes, and I think the reason why I wanted to break into those things is kind of I remember having this conversation with my friend and thinking about those conversations with the landscapes and those figurines, the fact that those figurines are not like actually people, it makes me think about real people and what they experience on a day-to-day basis outside of other people, right? And it's just like, there's tying into that, but also tying into before colonization and what people were thinking about and the ways that in which they were living and the things that they appreciated before they were somebody's like chattel, right? When you didn't have to think about, especially being African American, not having to think about the constant pressure that America puts on certain communities. And that's for my community, but it's also for the gay community, it's also for the Latin community, it's also for a lot of communities. And so what would I think about, you know, these moments that I have in actual like life, but I also think about what would life be like when the world is not that heavy on people, you know? And so it's like really reclaiming that ownership of just your own mind and your own body and your own spirit.
Thank you both. I really enjoyed both of those lectures. Teddy, I have a question for you about your piece with the chair with the golf chair. And I'm just curious because all your other work felt really different from that. That felt like kind of a departure piece for you, if I'm right. I'm not sure. And I'm wondering how humor plays into that, and perhaps how humor could play into some of your next pieces, or if you see it doing that.
Yeah, no, it definitely, absolutely was a departure from previous work. And, you know, I was sort of thinking about humor. I sort of made the form and wasn't sure which direction I was going to go, and have sort of thought about considering doing like themed works with that form because it's recreatable. And again, continuing on like this playful concept, like with the color and the materials. But originally, I was sort of thinking about how much I don't like the sport of golf, because you know it's the environmental impacts and just like and I do apologize if there's some golfers out there. We're right next to a golf course, but. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that definitely had some irony mixed into the chair as well. But yeah, I think I'm going to sort of run with it because I had a lot of fun creating something like that. But as far as exploration, just continue to work with different materials I think is on the horizon. So.
Am I on? Okay. I guess the question is, this is Teddy, the question is similar to Trey's, but I was looking at some of your woodwork and I'm looking at static pieces. However, in my mind, when I'm seeing it, I see dynamic energy into it. It just feels like the piece is kind of moving with energy. So I was kind of curious about, you know, let's say your future with wood are you going to be starting to combine metal with wood? And are you going to focus on furniture at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely glad that you sort of picked up sort of that dynamic movement, or at least that's what I strive for in some of the pieces. And yeah, I think it's a tricky thing that being here at Anderson Ranch, it's like you're constantly overwhelmed with learning different processes and material choices and wanting to explore all kinds of different things. So, I've worked with wood quite a bit and now metal some. But I think for me, I might start to steer away from that. We just taught a workshop last week. It was a materials lab, and it really focused on your footprint and when you're making art. And it is, to a certain extent, definitely a privilege to make work and to create this, especially in furniture too, create a product that you're putting out into the world. And I think I've been wanting to reduce, or at least to start to consider my footprint and what materials I choose to use going forward. So I might start trying to steer away from wood and metal and maybe into something new. Paper pulping is a really interesting process, and you can incorporate it into all kinds of different materials. So we were playing around with a little bit of cement and recycling paper and changing the weight of the concrete. I think I can't remember what she called it last week. It's like papercrete. So definitely want to continue to explore materials. Thanks for the question.
All right, thanks so much everyone for coming, and have a fantastic rest of your night.